Hello guys, Crispy here, welcome back to another video. In this one, my friends, I'm going to be testing a GeForce RTX 5080 in Cyberpunk 2077. This one is the Founders Edition model of the card. I'm running it with the latest Nvidia drivers and I'm not manually overclocking it. You can see all of its specs right here in Tech Power Up's GPU-Z, and over on the left, I'm pairing it with a Ryzen 7 9800X 3D and 32GB of RAM. Let's get into it, shall we? Let's go over the settings first. I'm starting at 4K resolution here, utilizing the Ultra settings preset. It's set to custom there because I disabled resolution scale. It turns FSR on by default. And I also disabled these options right here. These are just chromatic aberrations, film grains, motion blurs, and so on. But everything else, the important settings, are set to the Ultra preset. And this is native resolution at 4K. It's getting 60s, 70s, and so on. So you might think, yeah, this is going to be a really buttery smooth experience, 60 plus all of the time, until you start driving really fast, because when you do so, it starts dropping like a lot. This game, when you drive, the FPS are a lot different than just walking around and stuff like that. So we get 50 to 60 most of the time while driving a car at native 4K resolution, which is not the end of the world. The game supports DLSS 4 and it looks very good even with DLSS performance. And if you use Ray Reconstruction with ray tracing, it's just clean AF. But for now, we're sticking to no ray tracing. Obviously, I will test that out a little bit later in the video. Now, would I utilize these settings with the TAA and stuff? No, not really. You know, it does get 60 FPS on average, as you can see, so it's not the end of the world. But yeah, it's not too stable of an experience, unfortunately, and I prefer to see my 60 plus frames per second here. And we failed to kill Bob as well. Like, where is that bastard? He ran away. But yeah, you can expect 63 on average here with 46, 1% lows. My god. Oh, I was gonna grab that other car. Dude, stop wrecking my cars. Are you serious? All right, there we go. I headshotted you. You're supposed to be down, thank you. All right, so it's playable, but if you're spending $1,000 on a GPU, you probably want 60 plus FPS all of the time. Also, let's compare that a little bit with DLAA here, because this does get sharper than with the TAA baked into the game, you know, but as you can see, it drops things down into the 40s and 30s, and this is all without ray tracing still, so pretty intensive stuff. You should not utilize DLAA, actually. All right, but let's try DLSS on quality. This is what I would utilize with this GPU at 4K resolution, because it looks basically the same as native res. Actually, might be a tad bit sharper because it's not using TAA anymore, and it's getting 80 frames per second without any slowdown whatsoever, as you can see. Like previously, we would be seeing 50 to 60 most of the time, dropping down to 40s in the worst case scenarios, and over here we're dropping down to what, like 70s in worst case scenario, I guess. Stop doing that, you freaking bastards. All right, they're stuck over there now. Okay, let's go. Let's kill Bob this time around. Oh yes, very important, very important. The most important thing that we failed to do previously. This guy's trying to protect him, but we got it. Goodbye, Bob. Hey, is he dead? I think so. Let's just make sure. It's like that movie, Zombieland. You gotta double tap to make sure. Okay, there we go. So Bob is dead, finally. And around here in this roundabout, which is usually pretty intensive, we're getting up to 90 frames per second, guys. So yes, the game is rendering at 1440p and being upscaled to 4K resolution. It's not true 4K native res anymore, but in my opinion, it actually looks better because DLSS AA, or the anti-aliasing that comes from DLSS upscaling here, looks better than the TAA crap that the game has by default on native resolution. Obviously, it's not high refresh rate. For that, you either need to utilize DLSS performance or frame generation. We'll get to frame gen a little bit later. But yeah, let's do performance DLSS first. These are real frames here. Oh my god, what are we doing? How are you still alive, lady? Jesus Christ. Oh, this is Cyberpunk, of course, so she must have like a skull made of titanium or something like that. I mean, it probably isn't too hard to make at this point in time. 2077, you know, you've got all of those older iPhones, 16s and 15s and whatever with titanium that are junk, and you pull out all of the titanium pieces and make a cranium. But all right, guys, this is performance DLSS. Honestly speaking, I am not seeing a major difference here compared to quality DLSS or native resolution with DLAA. It's very similar. Once again, DLSS 4 does an amazing job. Goodbye, Bob! So if you want that higher refresh rate experience with 4K visuals still, just a tad bit softer than quality DLSS, but it still looks 4K, way better in like 1440p and 1080p, that's for sure. Well, you can use DLSS performance. There is no added input lag, obviously, because we're not using frame generation. But yeah, 122 FPS average and 74 1% lows. I don't think those 1% lows are too accurate. They might be because of little spikes here and there in the frame time graph. It's not a flat frame time graph, you know, like as you can see there. But it is very buttery smooth of an experience. But let's go back up to quality DLSS now and enable some frame generation. We got DLSS 4FG here with multi-frame generation, and we need to restart the game to fully apply it. So let's do this. Alrighty, here we go, guys. We're still keeping DLSS on quality, but with DLSS frame generation on top. And this is giving us a really buttery smooth experience right now. It's high refresh rate. It might look a little bit better than performance DLSS, but I can barely tell, honestly, because it was so close to quality already. I mean, maybe the reflections here, screen space reflections, are a little bit better because the internal resolution is higher on those. But yeah, aside from that, I'm not really seeing much of a difference, guys. This is probably a really good way to play the game if you don't care about ray tracing, of course. We'll get there. Once again, we'll get there. Stay with me. Goodbye, Bob, and friend of Bob. Show some respect. Show some respect towards who? Why is there like, there was a hat? What is that? Oh, it's a little piece of Bob's chair. Anywho, 120s, 130s right here. Really solid stuff, guys. Again, yeah, we're using frame generation on top of DLSS quality, so it's not really native resolution, but this way, since the FPS were actually really good with DLSS quality, around 80 frames per second, we can have very minimal input lag. And oh my gosh, someone exploded there. What the heck? With frame generation, there's like a 10 milliseconds increase in input lag. It's not noticeable, honestly, especially when you're talking about 120 plus FPS with FG enabled. It's really damn good. Anyway, guys, this is very solid of an experience, even shooting people and so on. It's really solid. It's actually really solid. Come on. There we go. If I'm missing, it's just because it's a skill issue. Alright, everything's alright. Let's go grab a car and get out of here. Whoo, boy. Lots of things happening here. But let's try. Should we try performance DLSS plus 2 times frame generation? You know what? Maybe for those of you aiming for an even higher refresh rate experience will like this. It's 2 times FG still. Okay. So there's no much added input lag, if any at all. It feels pretty much the same to me. And we're now up into the 170s, 180s instead of 120s, 130s. And the game still looks really solid, of course. So that's the experience. But I want to go back to quality plus 4 times frame generation here. And here we can actually break the 200 FPS barrier. Alright, with 4 times multi-frame generation. Feels absolutely unbelievable, of course, on a super high refresh rate panel, like 4K 240 Hz monitors. That will work extremely well with these settings. We're still not using ray tracing, but if all you want is a super high refresh rate experience on ultra settings without those added ray traced effects, yeah, this is the experience. You can actually max out or get close to maxing out a 240 Hz 4K monitor, and the visuals are still really good, once again. Like, I can't complain. The game looks amazing even with screen space reflections. It looks even more amazing. There's a big difference in visuals, actually, or a bit of a difference. I say big difference because in the back of my head, I'm thinking about how underwhelming and how kind of pointless RT was in Dying Light the Beast, because that's the last game that I tested with ray tracing. Yeah, it was really pointless. It didn't add anything, and it dropped our FPS by 2-3 times or something like that. But here, it actually does make a difference in terms of visuals. And finally, if you want to completely max out your frame rates at 4K resolution, let's use performance DLSS with 4 times FG on top. And this gets you 300 frames per second. Just so if you're wondering, you know, I'm testing a bunch of different settings, a bunch of different DLSS options and resolutions as well, just because everyone is different, everyone will choose a different setting of their liking, you know, and yeah, I myself would probably stick to ultra settings, aside from ray tracing stuff, which we haven't tested yet. From what we've seen so far, I would choose ultra settings, DLSS quality, maybe 2x FG as well, because it was considerably smoother and looked pretty much the same. But let's disable frame gen, let's go back to the resolution scaling turned off, still on the ultra settings, and let's play at 1440p resolution. And well, at 1440p resolution, we don't really need to try out a bunch of different upscaling settings, because as you can see at native resolution, we're already having a very fast, high refresh rate experience. Pretty much flawless here, but it has TAA, so it's a little bit blurry, it's a little bit soft, you know, and I don't really like it. And since we have enough FPS to enable DLAA instead of using that TAA crap, we should probably do that, right? So let's enable resolution scaling right here, Nvidia DLAA, and this is still 100% resolution scale, okay? It's rendering the full 1440p resolution. It's just using the anti-aliasing from DLSS, and it looks pretty great. It's way better than DLAA, although it drops us from 120s and 140s, or 130s actually, into the 80s and 90s. So major drop-off in performance, but again, if you want the best visual fidelity without RT at 1440p resolution, this is it. DLAA is noticeably sharper and less soft and fuzzy than TAA. It's actually really, really clean right now. So I would pick this experience. It's a single-player title, so 80 frames per second still feels really damn smooth compared to 60, for example, on a high refresh rate panel. Feels great, looks very good right now, and it gets you 70 plus frames pretty much at all times. Now, this is DLSS 4, so DLSS quality actually still looks better than TAA, in my opinion, in this one, at 1440p. And now we get even higher FPS, and these are all real frames again, no frame generation being utilized. My goodness, I just keep on crashing. As long as the game doesn't crash, everything's fine though. Honestly, at 1440p, there's no need to utilize like frame generations and stuff like that. However, if you want to, feel free to enable them to achieve even higher frame rates, of course. And right now, we're kind of achieving the limits of the 9800X 3D because that GPU utilization started dropping to like 94%. I saw it 80-something percent. So that is the limitation of the CPU right now. The GPU could do a little bit better of a job. So playing with like performance DLSS will make it super CPU bound, as you can see, and get pretty much the same FPS. 70-80% GPU usage. Yeah. Anyway, let's go back to DLAA over here and try frame generation. Why not? 2x and 4x will probably be the best way to achieve super high refresh rates actually at this resolution. Alright, let's start with 2x frame generation on top of DLAA. The baseline FPS were around 80, so that's perfectly fine and adequate to enable FG on top of it. And over here we're getting pretty much the same FPS as DLSS quality, guys. So if you want to keep that native resolution look, instead of dropping it down to quality DLSS, which still looked really, really good, don't get me wrong, but this is just a little bit cleaner, a little bit sharper. Yeah, use 2x frame generation and it will get you those 144 plus FPS pretty much at all times, which feel fantastic with very minimal input lag once again. Like, the input lag is phenomenal in Cyberpunk 2077. It's probably one of the best games when it comes to input lag, alongside with like Assassin's Creed Shadows and Dying Light the Beast. Pretty solid experience here, no problems whatsoever. High refresh rate all of the time. Let's try 4x though to achieve maybe 240 plus. Hell yes, that's exactly what we get here. So on a 240Hz monitor, 1440p, which, I mean, if you're going 1440p with an RTX 5080, 240Hz is a solid refresh rate for this GPU. Yeah, those FPS. Whew. Wait a second, let's kill Bob over here. Not with the car today. You know, I'm feeling quite fancy. I'm innocent, he says. He already knows what's coming. Well, what is this, buddy? What is this? This is magic tricks over here from Bob. That was just flying there. What are you selling? I know you're selling very bad stuff, buddy. Can you just go away? Wait, what happens if we break his chair and don't do anything to it? Of course he flies there. How are you innocent? You freaking wizard, dude! Actually, he isn't a wizard. He is a demon. Bob is the demon of benchmarking. He is always found in the most intensive areas of the games. And now, we're back here, guys, but at 1080p resolution. This is where I start telling you to not pair 5080 with a 1080p resolution display. Yes, with ray tracing and so on, you could say it's the adequate resolution for it, because at 1440p with RT, for example, this starts dropping from 60 FPS if you don't use upscaling or frame generation. But don't, alright? Because DLSS quality at 1440p, for example, looks better than 1080p native, and it actually runs better usually because it's rendering the game at 960p, and 4K with performance DLSS looks a lot better than even 1440p native resolution. And this GPU will handle that in all of the games absolutely fine, even with ray tracing enabled. If you use DLSS performance at 4K, it's going to be a really good experience, guys. So don't pair this with a 1080p display, please. But let's try it with DLAA as well, and now we get 99% GPU utilization, much cleaner visuals as well. Like, it's night and day, especially at 1080p resolution. At 4K res, you can still tell the difference. DLAA is softer, you know, DLAA is sharper, but DLAA still looks good. But at 1080p, I don't think TAA looks good. And once you enable DLAA here, it's just amazing, actually. So, if you're at 1080p resolution for whatever reason with an RTX 5080, I guess play with ultra settings, DLAA if you want a higher fresher experience and if you want to keep that native resolution look as well. So yeah, I think I'll leave it right there for the 1080p section here with these settings. Let's go back to 4K resolution, guys. But now, with the Ray Tracing Ultra preset, I will do a couple of adjustments here. First of all, let's disable resolution scaling, so we play with TAA and the native res. And I, of course, will disable motion blurs, vignettes, and chromatic aberrations, film grains with depth of fills, and that's it. Alright, so these are the Ray Tracing Ultra settings at native 4K resolution now, and I will actually restart the game completely to make sure that it fully applies without any issues whatsoever. And well, here we have it, guys. Ray tracing on the RTX 5080 native 4K resolution. Not even with DLAA, because with DLAA it would ruin the performance. It would be in the 20s actually instead of 30s. But yeah, it's a pretty horrible experience, right? If you don't use upscaling here, don't play this game with ray tracing, basically. Even at 1440p, I doubt it will be a good experience. Actually, since it's so bad of an experience right now, let's drop it down to 1440. I'll still use all of the DLSS shenanigans at 4K, but let's try the native resolutions first, okay? And at 1440p, it gets 60s, as you can see, but I think it will drop from 60 FPS in some situations. So 1440p is still not an amazing experience. Surprisingly, I thought it was going to drop a little bit further than this. With overdrive ray tracing or path tracing here, it will definitely suck a lot, but yeah, over here, not too terrible. 60, 59, dips down into the 50s sometimes, but it's not the end of the world, really. But again, there are much better experiences to be had with ray tracing enabled, especially because this game supports Ray Reconstruction. And when you couple that with DLSS quality, by the way, 1080p resolution is next, it will look really sharp. And it will make the quality of the reflections even better than at native resolution with TAA. It's that good, all right? Ray Reconstruction kind of changed the game when it came to the reflections on the car and stuff like that. I can actually make that little test over here. So we're using, look at the reflections there on top of the car, right? We're using TAA here, no ray reconstruction, ultra ray tracing settings, And this is 1080p resolution as well, so the internal resolution of those reflections is even lower than 1080p, all right? And now let's enable DLSS here on DLAA without Ray Reconstruction first, so this is just DLAA. Still looks really soft in terms of those reflections, right? It looks super sharp everywhere else, but those reflections don't look too good. And now, with Ray Reconstruction enabled, look at that. Damn, that is a huge difference. Whoo! Right? That is clean. That is amazing. And look at the FPS as well. Very similar to what we were seeing before, right? I mean, look at the shininess, whatever, of the car. So beautiful, so beautiful. So needless to say, I will keep the DLSS Ray Reconstruction enabled throughout the ray tracing tests. Okay, let's go back to 4K resolution though. I'm gonna need to resize this. That's why I keep going back to this to make the on-screen display a bit bigger at 4K. And I guess let's try it with DLAA first. See how bad it is. 20s. But see how much better that looks, even at 4K resolution compared to previously. That is really good. Like, it's all because of Ray Reconstruction, once again. And DLAA also makes things cleaner, but the ray traced reflections are only better because of Ray Reconstruction here. But let's try it with DLSS quality at 4K resolution. And those reflections still look really sharp, as you can see on top of the car. Very, very good indeed. However, we're getting 50s. So still no 60 frames per second here, even with DLSS quality, but that kind of makes sense, right? We came from 30 FPS. With DLSS quality, it doesn't really quite double our frame rate, so we're getting 50s. Down into the low 50s sometimes, it might even drop into the 40s. So not really an amazing experience just yet, right? So let's just drop it down a little bit further, and my personal pick, if you want to play with ray tracing enabled, is to use DLSS set to performance, coupled with that Ray Reconstruction and the transformer model. Do not use CNN, by the way. Transformer is much better. And right now, we're getting pretty much similar FPS to what we saw with DLSS quality ultra settings at 4K resolution without ray tracing, but now we have ray tracing. So it actually does look really good, and I think once we enable some frame generation on top of this, it's going to be smooth, still responsive, and so on, and yeah, this is a really compelling option. Once again, ray tracing doesn't really add that much visual fidelity, in my opinion, to warrant the insane drop in FPS that you get usually. But in this title, it looks really good, and you can make it look like 4K resolution with DLSS performance and Ray Reconstruction and so on, while getting really good FPS at the same time. So I feel like this is the way to go if you want to play Cyberpunk 2077. So yeah guys, this is just a no-brainer. If you are playing at 4K resolution with ray tracing and a 58, which you should in the case of Cyberpunk 2077. There are games out there where you shouldn't really play with ray tracing enabled, like Dying Light the Beast, as I mentioned previously, because that does nothing to the graphics almost, and it kills your performance completely. But in this one, performance DLSS looks awesome. You got Ray Reconstruction as well. Performance is good, and yeah, it's beautiful as well. However, there could be a better or an even better way to play this game, and that is with DLSS frame generation. Let's try it out. You know what? Something that I haven't talked about yet is the frame generation artifacting. It's not too noticeable, but for example, in these crosswalks, since they have these patterns, sometimes I can see some weirdness if I'm moving the camera really fast, but it's really minor. Most of the time, it's barely noticeable if it has any of those artifacts. Ooh, this is a really nice car. I want that. I want that. I want this car. Come on, stop that. Stop that. There we go. Just stop. Just don't ruin my car. Don't ruin my next car. All right, there we go. Come on, buddy, please. Oh my God, you're ruining it completely. Stop. Stop. She knew exactly what I was about to do. Well, let's use this one. So 140 something frames per second. Oh, there's the guy. He just stopped there. Okay, weird. Yeah, 130s. So you keep basically the same visuals as before with performance DLSS and so on, and ray tracing. And we're now up to 144 FPS sometimes. That's just buttery smooth. I love it, guys. Let's see if the light of the car bounces off of the walls. Like the windows of the car. Yes, they do. Look at that. Over there. It lights that up. Interesting. Very nice. Like, the ray tracing in this game is very well done. Of course, because Nvidia actually worked with the developers here a lot to make it really good and introduce all of these new technologies like ray reconstruction, frame generation after the release of this game. I'm not gonna kill you this time, Bob. You got lucky. You got lucky just because somebody started shooting at me. But I will get you next time. Nothing to complain about. The only thing that I have to complain about really is the 5080 should have been faster from the get-go. It should have been at least 4090 performance, right? And it's slower than 4090, so it's really underwhelming. It's pretty much the same price as 4080 Super, and yet it's like 8% faster or almost the same in some games. That's the only complaint that I have here, but of course, 4080, 4080 Super, 5070 Ti, 5080, these are still very fast GPUs, even if they're underwhelming compared to the last generation. And all things point towards them becoming even more expensive next year, so that really sucks. That really sucks. It's because of the RAM and so on. Oh, by the way, I could actually flex that. Look, guys, I am rich. What a flex this is these days. That's so stupid, actually. I really hope the RAM prices come back to normal very shortly, because this is just absurd at this point. Anyway, 240 FPS. That is crazy good for like an OLED 240Hz monitor at 4K resolution. It looks so much better in like 1080p and 1440p resolution. It looks 4K still to me. Alright, back to 1440p resolution, guys, and we already saw it with these settings, so native resolution and so on. It was around 60 frames per second, dropping into the 50s sometimes. Not very good, really. So let's try it with some quality DLSS next. Or maybe I should use DLAA for a little bit as well, if you guys want to take a look at that. Gets very similar FPS to TAA, actually. I'm impressed about that. With the ray tracing, it doesn't really change by too much like it did with ultra settings and DLAA on top. Yeah, anyway, it's still not a good experience here because it drops from 60, and yeah, you could use frame generation over DLAA, for example, but since it drops from 60, the input lag would be a lot more noticeable than if you were to use quality DLSS and then frame generation on top of that with around 80 frames per second, which is what I was expecting, but it's actually 100 FPS. Okay, let's start counting our FPS. Maybe if we start driving really fast, it will drop into the 80s, which is what I was expecting. Or maybe I'm just rusty when it comes to Cyberpunk these days. And yeah, my expectations aren't really that right anymore sometimes. But anyway, as you can see, really clean graphics. Really clean graphics. With DLSS quality, very similar to DLAA here, still at 1440p resolution. You can tell it's a little bit softer, but you can also add a little bit of sharpness if you want to make it a little bit sharper. It's surely looking better than TAA without ray reconstruction, that's for sure. And yeah, it's around 100 frames per second. So if all you want to do is 1440p with around these FPS and ray tracing enabled, this is the way. But I feel like with that frame generation, you can achieve such higher FPS that you should probably use that. And also, we're seeing a little bit, just tiny bit, it's mostly GPU bound still, but we're seeing a tiny bit of GPU usage fluctuation there. So let's enable frame generation. On top of this, need to restart. These restarts are what's making me a little bit mad, because previously in these Cyberpunk videos, you didn't need to restart it to apply frame generation, but now you do after an FSRFG update. Alrighty, here we have it, guys. 2 times frame generation here, quality DLSS at 1440p resolution. And this gives us higher FPS than I expected once again. I mean, I thought about like 140s maybe. It's 160s, 170s most of the time. Slightly softer as well, I can notice that because of FG, but it's still looking really good. So 170s, 160s, probably down to 150s at times. It's really solid. No need for higher FPS in my opinion. But again, if you want those 240 plus, 4 times frame generation is there for you, or even 3 times, which sits in the middle of the two, of course. That's why I'm skipping it. It's just, you can guess by looking at the FPS on 4 times and 2 times what the 3 times will be. Yeah, 300. That's actually crazy. We've also started seeing some really high refresh rate 1440p monitors that are OLED as well, like 300 Hertz, 360 Hertz, and so on. So this would be fitting for one of those, this experience right here. Down into the 280 sometimes, but it's gonna be just... It's gonna be phenomenal. So that's it for 1440p with ray tracing ultra settings. Let's move on to 1080p. I always feel a little bit weird testing 1080p resolution on 5070 Ti and up, you know, even 5070. You should grab a 1440p monitor with one of those, honestly. Alrighty, here we go. This is ray tracing at 1080p resolution. We've already seen that, actually. I forgot that we tested 4K 1440p and 1080p with TAA first, with RT. So let's go ahead, try a little bit of DLAA and Ray Reconstruction at the same time. Should be very similar. A drop of like 10 frames per second, or maybe 5 to 10 frames per second here. There's no need to drop it down to quality DLSS, really. It would still look okay with quality DLSS at 1080p resolution because it's DLSS 4 again, but then you would start noticing some weird things, because the internal resolution would be way too low at 720p resolution. You know, it does a good job upscaling 720p to 1080p, but you can still see some imperfections, of course. Whereas at 1440p and 4K, those aren't really present, or at least they're really hard to notice. So yeah, DLAA is the way to go if you're playing with ray tracing at 1080p resolution. It looks sick, actually, still. Now, should we try frame gen at 1080p resolution? Now the FPS aren't really as high as they were before on Ultras, so I think it makes sense, maybe. Alright, here we go. 2 times FG is getting us very similar FPS to 2 times FG at 1440p with quality DLSS, and that looked quite a bit better than this, by the way, so that's why you should invest in a better monitor than 1080p. And it gets 160s. Yeah, alright, it's nothing that we haven't seen before, so I guess enabling 4 times will give us those 300s? Yep, exactly. So it might be a little bit better than 14... No, it's pretty much the same, actually. Yeah, 280s, 270s. Alright, so it's pretty much the same as we've seen with frame generation at 1440p quality DLSS. And that translates into extremely high FPS, of course, really low input lags, and great for 1080p 300 plus hertz displays, or 280 hertz or something like that. Honestly, I don't have much else to add to this 1080p section, so I guess I'm just gonna leave it there, and we're gonna try out some path tracing next. You know, ray tracing is extremely intensive, but path tracing is just out of this world. Honestly, it's kind of future technology in my opinion, and it doesn't really run very well. But with the help of DLSS and frame generation, it's probably going to be possible to play like this. So let's try it first at 4K resolution, native res. Okay, I'm gonna disable these again. Oh my god. Oh my god. Jeez, okay. You know, I think I actually tried this in the full review of this GPU. Again, path tracing enabled there. But I forgot. The 5090 was getting like 30 FPS with these settings, and this one's getting 20. I think the 5090 was even getting those higher FPS with DLAA at the same time and Ray Reconstruction, which do make a difference. It just disables all of the noise, basically, that comes with TAA. TAA is quite noisy in this one. But, wow, yeah, this is unplayable at this point. 5080 with path tracing at native 4K is just pretty terrible. But let's see if we can make it better, okay? Let's try DLSS performance right away, because quality won't really get us much better frames than these, and performance still looks amazing. So here we go. Actually, let me just go there. try to look at the... Whoa! That guy almost ran me over. All right. Let's check out this lighting over here. That looks awesome, actually. Look at this. Damn! It's so good looking. Look at the reflections there. Where is my reflection, though? Like, that is accurate, but I am not showing up there on the reflection, I think. At least I can see myself. Okay, never mind. Let's go inside then.
A little put out there input.
Okay.
Interest you in a preem BD?
I don't know what that means. But I kind of want to go here. Brain dance. Brain dance. I don't.
And I go.
Okay, let's go in. Not really sure what I'm gonna find because of that little talk there. I don't remember seeing that talk or hearing that talk previously, but I've been here before, actually. Obviously, I mean, while making it, not off camera. Anyway, you know what? Let's keep on going. So we're getting 50s here. It's a very nice place to see the path tracing. The path trace, yes. So yeah, guys, the lighting is beautiful here with path tracing enabled. Definitely very enjoyable to see this. But we're getting very low FPS. Performance DLSS. It looks 4K to me again, but it still can't reach 60 FPS plus. What am I doing? Let's get out of here. I can't even concentrate. Right, so FPS aren't really amazing. Once again, if you don't enable frame generation, it's not going to be a smooth experience. If you enable frame generation, it's going to be a bit input laggy since we're below 60 frames, but I'll still enable frame generation. Okay, here we go, 2x FG, baseline FPS were 50 to 60. I can definitely tell a little bit higher input lag, but honestly, this is better than just playing the game at 50 FPS. So I will take that higher input lag, slightly higher input lag, and play like this all day long if you really want to play with path tracing. It's a good experience, guys. Ultra ray tracing settings are still the way to go because the path tracing is just way too intensive once again, and Ultra RT looks amazing in this one already. But again, if you're all about that path tracing, which I know a lot of people do prefer to play with path tracing enabled, go ahead. It is going to be a pretty solid experience. Let me just get out and try to aim at some people here. A little bit of aliasing there on that light. Yeah, while you're walking, the input lag seems to be a little bit worse or more obnoxious, more noticeable since you need to aim at things. What's happening here? Hello? What the heck? Did that lady just die there? Yeah, 100 FPS, 90 FPS, beautiful graphics. It is playable of an experience with path tracing enabled, guys. It actually is. It's pretty solid. Now, 4x FG is probably a little bit too much because you will likely start noticing a bit of artifacting if you don't have more than 200 FPS consistently with 4x FG. And that definitely happens here. Yeah, around the car, for example, driving at high speeds, I can notice some imperfections there. Artifacting will be a lot more prevalent here with the starting FPS of 50 to 60 instead of like 70 plus. But let's disable the frame generation. Let's go ahead and try DLAA again with Ray Reconstruction. And let's go down to 1440p. And here we have it. 1440p with DLAA is getting us above 30 FPS at the very least, but it is not a very solid experience in terms of frame rates, right? It's another big drop down from ultra ray tracing, even at native 1440, which was getting us around 60 FPS. So we still require DLSS. So let's use DLSS quality. That should bump things up into the 60s. There we go. Much more stable of an experience here. I wouldn't drop it below quality because then you can start noticing the lower resolution. Getting 60s here. It might dip down to the 50s. But this is a better baseline FPS experience than what we had at 4K resolution with the DLSS performance and ray tracing overdrive, which was 50 to 60 most of the time. This is 60 to 65 most of the time. So that means that maybe with 4x FG it will actually be a stable experience in terms of artifacting, and with 2x FG it should be getting higher than 100 frames per second pretty much at all times with very decent input lag, you know. So yeah, although this is still fine, you can have the 60 FPS experience here with path tracing. There are better options or better experiences to be had with, for example, 2x frame generation here. So let's enable that. And here we are, 1440p resolution quality DLSS frame generation 2x, and it's getting us 130s. Yep, so it's going to be a pretty solid experience here, guys. I'm sorry again. I really am, like, I wouldn't kill you if the game allowed me to just safely... Why are you... What the heck is going on? I'm not driving! I'm not driving! What's happening? Hello? Is there somebody over there with me? What the heck is going on? I'm not touching the keyboard, only the mouse. That is weird. An NPC is driving right now. What the f... Okay, no, go. Yes, yeah. Is he going to kill Bob? Oh my god, no freaking... It's impossible. It's impossible that he will kill Bob, right? Like, unless someone is hacking my computer at the moment. No, he's turning over here, okay. Wow, that's very interesting, though. That's never happened to me. I think I killed the guy that was driving, and maybe the other guy on the side went to the driving seat, and I sat on top of him, and now this is happening. No, it seems like I am driving? Yeah, my character is auto-driving. Maybe I pressed the button or something like that for him to auto-drive. I can't stop, though. I can't even get out. Okay, I can get out of the vehicle, at least. Wow, okay. Maybe there is a button to auto-drive. Like, it just starts like that. It's weird. It's really weird. I'm so confused at this point. Anyway, guys, very clean graphics still. Very good FPS. No complaints here. Path tracing is on and everything. I don't know if I would use path tracing at this point, because it's still a pretty solid experience. Why did you crash? And why did you stop there? Oh, now I'm driving again. Did he crash and kill the NPC? Like, I didn't click anything. With all of the bugs in this game, that is one that I have never seen in the past. But hey guys, that was a bit of fun actually. Anyway, that's the experience with 2x. Let's jump to 4x frame generation, and it gets us 200 plus over here. But this area is not intensive, so we need to get back to the city. So now, the baseline FPS that we were getting are enough to have that 4x frame generation enabled without much artifacting. There might still be a little bit of it, though, but it's much harder to notice. Yeah, I can't really notice it too much, or at all, right now. Solid experience here, high refresh rate. If you have one of those 240Hz monitors at 1440p resolution, these are probably the settings that you'll want to utilize if you want to use path tracing. It's all up to you, of course. I'm showing you different settings and so on. And at this point, I'm not even sure how I would play the game anymore, because we've tested so many things, and all of them, or most of them, were actually really enjoyable and good looking. So I'm at a loss at the moment. I don't know what I would pick. Let's go down to 1080p resolution now with DLAA and play like that for a little bit. And look at that, guys. Even at 1080p resolution with path tracing, if you want to do native res, it might not be enough. You will likely need to drop down the resolution to like 900p to achieve 60 plus 100% of the time. That's crazy. Also, I don't know why sometimes these cars... Like, this is the same model car as I was using previously, the blue one, but this one doesn't make noise. Is it because it's electric or something? I don't know. But as you can see, the FPS are dropping into the 50s sometimes. So 1080p native with path tracing, yeah, it's still too much. It's still too much for the 5080. You could say that the 5080 is a 720p path tracing GPU, because you'll need to use some DLSS to achieve 60 plus, right? Oh man, yeah, DLSS at this resolution does look quite a lot worse. What are you doing? Goodbye, Bob! That was a clean Bob kill, actually. Nice. What is that guy doing? Like, seriously, he's just bumping into everyone. Is he coming for me? No. He's moving away. Do I want to check him out? Do I want to kill the bastard so he doesn't cause any more chaos? Like, what is he doing? Look at what the heck? Bro! Hello? What's happening? What's going on with you? Are you feeling okay? Are you drunk or something? Are you benchmarking? Maybe he's benchmarking. Wait. 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 Come on. There it is. Problem solved. Get out of there. My car sucks. My car sucks. Is Bob there again? Yes, he is. No! These freaking bastards destroyed my car before it got to Bob. This guy is inside of it, though. Look at him. He's gonna die. Stop that. There we go. There he is. Oh, he didn't die. How did you not die? Where are you now? Hello? Okay, he's inside of the car still. Goodbye, Bob. Wait. Let me make sure. Double tap, triple tap. Goodbye, Bob. 1080p is playable. All right, with quality DLSS and path tracing. Obviously, this is way too low of a resolution compared to everything that we saw so far, even with path tracing. I would pick performance DLSS at 4K resolution with DLSS 2 times frame generation instead of this. And the last thing to test, I guess, is set it back to DLAA here, try some frame generation on top of DLAA, and call it a day. And here we have it, 1080p, 2 times frame generation on top of DLAA. Remember, the starting FPS were about 58 plus or 56 plus FPS, mostly 60s. And therefore, our FPS that we get here with frame generation 2 times is around 105 to 110 frames per second on average, I would say. Which translates into, as I told you many times before, because we've seen these FPS already in this video plenty of times with 2 times frame generation, little bit of input lag that is noticeable, but not too much, still very playable, and very clean visuals, pretty much like native resolution, and no artifacting either, so pretty solid of an experience like this. I can't really complain, but again, it's 1080p, so if I complained about something at 1080p with a freaking 5080, that would mean that there was something wrong with my 5080, probably. Anyway, 4 times FG is right around 200 frames per second, which means that you can notice a bit of artifacting here and there, especially when it drops into like the 180s, 190s, starts becoming pretty noticeable. So not that usable in my opinion. But yeah guys, that's about it for this one. We've tested a bunch of different settings and resolutions. This was a really big video, but I hope you guys enjoyed and I hope it was helpful and entertaining to watch as well. Thanks for watching, catch you in the next one. Love you all, bye bye.